Have you ever cheated?
Yes.
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 Yes. Many times.
Have you ever cheated on anyone?
Yes.
Why did you cheat on him?
Because I was unhappy.
Have you ever cheated? Yes, once, a long time ago.
You never forget the moment the world tilts, the text you weren't meant to read, the stranger's name on their lips, the hotel receipt that doesn't belong. Betrayal steals more than trust. It rewrites every memory you thought was safe. Tonight, before we unravel 5 true stories of cheating, ask yourself, what would hurt more, knowing the truth or never finding it? Erin met Daniel on a Tuesday that felt ordinary until it wasn't. She was 34, 3 years into marriage, juggling grant deadlines at the university lab. He was the guest lecturer flown in to discuss CRISPR ethics. When he spoke, the seminar room leaned toward him. Erin felt it too. Curiosity first, then the tug of recognition that sometimes disguises itself as professional admiration. They shook hands afterward. His palm was warm, his compliment specific. Your question about consent frameworks was the smartest challenge I've had on this tour. Praise precise enough to feel earned. He invited her for coffee to continue the debate. She heard herself say yes. The coffee stretched into an hour, then 2. Discussion morphed from gene editing to music they loved in college, childhood summers by different oceans, the difficulty of feeling understood by partners who fixate on outcomes more than ideas. When her phone buzzed with her husband Mark's text, "Dinner at 7?" she felt embarrassment bloom. 2 hours vanished. She typed, "Running late at the lab," a technical truth veiling emotional drift. Cheating rarely begins with a hotel room. It starts with micro decisions that feel harmless. An extended coffee, a private joke, the second text sent when the first would suffice. Cognitive psychologists call it the foot in the door effect, small compliances, paving the path to larger ones. That night, Mark noticed Erin's distraction. She blamed fatigue. In bed, she scrolled Daniel's public lecture schedule even though she already knew it. Tiny spike of adrenaline, small secret seed. Over the next month, Daniel's tour moved on, yet messages grew. Academic citations became memes, then inside jokes, then confessions typed at midnight about insecurities neither shared with their spouses. Distance created safety. Screens created intimacy. Emotional affaret, some would label it. Erin told herself boundaries were intact because geography kept bodies apart. Secrecy itself is a drug. Neuroscience studies show that hiding meaningful information activates the caudate nucleus, releasing dopamine similar to gambling wins. Erin began craving the notification ping more than she craved Mark's predictable good morning kiss. When Daniel announced he would return for a symposium, Erin felt panic laced with thrill. She booked herself as liaison to ensure continuity. Mark applauded her initiative. The morning Daniel arrived, the hug lasted half a second too long, enough for both to acknowledge the shift without words. The symposium ended with celebratory drinks. Colleagues drifted off. Rain started. Erin called a car, but Daniel suggested waiting in his hotel lobby. The lobby suggested the elevator. The elevator suggested the room. Each suggestion easier than the last, because momentum does the heavy lifting once a line has blurred. In the room, Daniel poured whiskey. Erin set the glass down untouched. She kissed him first. The kiss felt inevitable, like gravity finishing work humans began months earlier. Clothes followed, then the quiet after. She cried, not sorrow, more shock at the ease of crossing a boundary she once believed immovable. Cheaters experience cognitive dissonance, the clash between self-image and action. To reduce it, they alter either behavior or belief. Erin began rewriting belief. My marriage has been lonely. Mark will not understand my intellectual world, narrative plastic enough to hold the new shape of self. Affairs often create a triangle of reality, fantasy, and fear. Reality is spouse and mortgage, and weekend chores. Fantasy is hotel linens and stolen hours. Fear is being found out. The triangle spins until one point tears. That tear came when Mark opened a shared tablet and saw a photo thumbnail, Erin laughing in hotel lamplight, Daniel's blurred shoulder beside her. Confrontation was quiet. Mark's voice shook, asking, "Is there something you need to tell me?" Erin's rehearsed honesty evaporated under his hurt. Disclosure researchers note that confession rarely feels like relief. It often transfers the burden of secrecy to the betrayed. Mark entered a grief cycle. Shock, anger, bargaining. Erin entered shame and rationalization. She loved Mark, yet loved feeling alive with Daniel. Dual truths clashed. They tried therapy. Sessions exposed unmet needs. Mark's fixation on financial security masked fear of failure. Erin's craving for intellectual connection masked fear of invisibility. Therapist framed the affair as symptom, not root. Healing required brutal clarity and mutual choice. Rebuild or release. 6 months later, they hosted friends for dinner. Laughter returned, but Erin noticed Mark watched her phone when it buzzed. Trust, once glass, now mosaic, beautiful but forever fractured. Daniel faded into conference circuits. Erin kept his last message unread, a relic of a life she entered through one door and exited through another. Affairs promise freshness, but deliver complexity. They reveal fault lines in existing structures and create new ones in souls that cross them. Cheating is not reserved for hotel rooms or grand betrayals. Sometimes it lives inside a swipe, a like, a late-night chat labelled harmless. Micro-infidelity grows in digital soil, where attention is currency and temptation is one notification away. Lena downloaded Flickr just to see what the fuss was about. At least that is what she told her friends after the third glass of rosé on trivia night. She had been with Jordan for 4 steady years, loved how he folded her laundry and let her hog the duvet. Stability? Yes, excitement. Not so much. Flickr promised harmless curiosity, a swipe-based app marketed as personality quizzes disguised as matchmaking. Her first evening on the couch, she set the radius to 30 kilometers, an age range wide enough to include everybody she would never actually meet. She told herself it was digital people watching. Swipe left, left, right, laugh, left. Dopamine glitter burst each time the screen flashed. Match! None of it meant anything because she never intended to reply. Until she did. His username was Novelty Guy. Profile photo holding a rescued greyhound. Bio. Recovering cynic looking for good bookstores and better playlists. Lena typed, "What does a recovering cynic read first?" He answered within minutes, referencing an obscure sci-fi novel she adored. The chat stretched, electric, safe behind glass. That night, Jordan cooked pasta, while Lena answered work emails. Her smile glowed blue because Flickr's dark mode bathed her face in midnight light. She giggled at emojis, then cleared notifications before dinner. Relationship researchers define micro-cheating as small acts of secrecy that feed romantic attention outside the primary partnership. They rarely start as schemes. They evolve from boredom plus opportunity. Social media supplies infinite opportunity, algorithmically tailored to one's loneliness. Days passed. Notifications became rituals. Lena woke early to send Novelty Guy voice notes describing sunrise over the city. He replied with guitar riffs recorded in his kitchen. They created an inside joke about the pigeons on her balcony, named them, shared photos. Intimacy by breadcrumb. Lena began polishing details of her life before sharing. Cropped Jordan's coffee mug from a countertop picture, avoided mentioning Sunday hikes together. Emotional editing creates distance, secrecy widens it. One Saturday, Jordan suggested installing Flick It the Couple's version of Flickr that pairs partners for friend groups. Lena's pulse spiked. She laughed it off. "We spend enough time on our phones." Jordan shrugged and returned to marinating chicken, unaware a quiet boundary had shifted. Novelty Guy proposed a harmless game. Both would list 3 fantasies they had never confessed to anyone else. Lena hesitated 2 seconds too long, then typed. When he responded with vulnerability of his own, adrenaline surged. She reread the chat like a treasured diary entry. Neuroscience shows that sharing secrets releases oxytocin, bonding people similar to physical touch. Virtual confessions can rival real kisses in neurochemical impact. Lena's body believed the connection was tangible even as her mind insisted it was play. The pivot arrived when Novelty Guy announced a business trip that would pass through Lena's city. He suggested coffee to prove we aren't bots. She responded with a laughing emoji and typed yes before considering. The next morning, guilt fluttered. She convinced herself the meeting was research for a short story she had been thinking about writing. They met at a riverside cafe Jordan disliked for its overpriced lattes. Novelty guy's real name was Ethan. Smile familiar from selfies, eyes warmer in person, conversation flowed without the safety of edits. When he touched her arm while demonstrating a joke, electricity jumped skin. She felt the room tilt. She excused herself to the bathroom, stared at the mirror, and counted breaths. The face looking back seemed younger, hungrier, stranger. She asked aloud, "What am I doing?" The mirror offered no reply, only her own reflection, holding a secret. Returning to the table, she lied, "My partner is expecting me to help prep dinner." Ethan nodded, disappointed but respectful. They hugged goodbye. The hug lasted a fraction longer than polite. Enough to set memory hooks. Later that evening, Jordan praised the salmon she seasoned. She smiled, but tasted ash. The phone buzzed with Ethan's message. "Great meeting you. Safe drive home." She didn't reply. She did not delete the app either. Silence became a third character in the apartment. Jordan sensed distance, asked if work was stressful. Lena answered yes, half a truth again. Silence thickened. 2 weeks later, she found Jordan installing Flickit on his phone. "Thought it might be fun," he said cautiously. Shame slammed into her ribs. She confessed not everything, but enough. Digital flirtation, cafe meetings, nothing physical. Jordan's hurt flared anyway. Betrayal measured not by bodies, but by secrets. Therapist sessions revealed unmet novelty needs in both partners. Jordan felt dismissed for budgeting groceries instead of spontaneous dates. Lena felt unseen in intellectual curiosity. They implemented phony-free evenings, planned mystery excursions for each other, and deleted unused apps together. Trust rebuilds slower than betrayal spreads. Notifications still trigger cortisol in Jordan's chest. Lena leaves her phone face up as penance and transparency. They learn that micro-cheating is not micro in impact. Digital breadcrumbs can lead to real wounds. Some betrayals thrive on convenience. Others demand architecture. There are people who construct entire second lives, juggling schedules, birthdays, lies upon lies. Now we follow one such architect, a partner splitting existence across 2 cities, 2 phones, and eventually 2 crumbling realities. Clara met Nathan on a red-eye flight from Seattle to Chicago. She was a marketing analyst headed to quarterly meetings. He claimed to be a project manager, relocating to open a Midwest office. They bonded over stale pretzels and a shared disdain for airport carpet. When turbulence jolted the cabin, he cracked a joke so perfectly timed that Clara felt her shoulders unclench. By landing, they had traded numbers for restaurant tips. Nathan texted the next day, recommending a jazz bar 2 blocks from her hotel. Clara went, expecting a polite drink, but conversation flowed like a set list. He listened as if cataloguing her words, matching stories to anecdotes with effortless rapport. At midnight, he walked her to the lobby and kissed her hand old-fashioned, almost disarming. She flew home the next morning, replaying that small gesture. Over the next 6 months, work routed Clara through Chicago 5 times. Each visit, Nathan appeared sometimes for dinner, sometimes for entire weekends whose itineraries felt curated. Brunch at hidden cafes, late shows at speakeasies, Sunday strolls along the lake. Between trips, they texted daily and FaceTimed weekly. He sent photos of his dog, a rescue mutt named Orbit, and progressed shots of an apartment renovation he said was finally feeling like home. Clara's friends noticed her newfound glow, but one asked the practical question: if he's relocating, why hasn't he visited you? Clara relayed the query. Nathan laughed, citing Orbit's anxiety on planes and an upcoming product launch consuming his schedule. To prove commitment, he mailed her a spare key to the Chicago apartment, wrapped around a handwritten promise. "Your room is always ready." The first crack surfaced when Clara booked a surprise visit flight plus flowers to celebrate his birthday. Nathan's phone went straight to voicemail. At the building's security desk, the concierge frowned. "No, Nathan O'Leary in residence." Clara's stomach pitched. She texted, At your door. Everything okay? 3 hours later, he called, frantic. Said he'd been in an all-day offsite. The desk clerk must be new. Meet him at a cafe instead. The explanation felt thin, but his panic sounded real. Cognitive dissonance mollified her. Love prefers plausible stories. Psychologists label this dynamic compartmentalization walling, of conflicting realities to avoid internal collapse. Double-bow lifers rely on meticulous scheduling and narrative discipline. Each lie is a brick. Eventually, the structure needs constant maintenance. A month later, Clara's company transferred her to Chicago permanently. Nathan's excitement felt genuine, yet tension pulsed beneath. He insisted she keep her own place for independence. She agreed, chalking discomfort to modern pragmatism. Moving day came. Nathan helped carry boxes, but his phone buzzed incessantly. He stepped outside, for supplier calls, returning distracted. Clara noticed his lock screen, a photo of Orbit beside a woman she'd never seen. Nathan said it was his sister. Clara smiled, believing halfway. Doubt solidified when she ran into him downtown on a Tuesday handovinnen with the same woman, carefree in daylight. Nathan froze. Clara felt the sidewalk tilt. He introduced the woman as a colleague visiting from HQ, kissed Clara on the cheek too quickly, and promised to call. That night she traced social media breadcrumbs. The colleague was Rachel, tagged in posts dating back 3 years' anniversary dinners, holiday parties, a couple costume last Halloween. Relationship status: engaged. Clara's lungs seized. Confrontation unfurled in Nathan's apartment, really, Rachel and Nathan's apartment, while Orbit whimpered, sensing chaos. Nathan's mask cracked. He admitted everything. Chicago life with Rachel, consulting trips to Seattle where he courted Clara. 2 phones, 2 calendars, 2 stories. He insisted he loved Clara differently, claimed Rachel doesn't get his intellectual side. The explanations stacked like cards in a collapsing trick. Pathological deception research notes that chronic liars derive ego reinforcement from successfully managing competing realities. The thrill lies less in romance, more in mastery of complexity. But complexity scales until math catches up missed dates, repeated outfits, digital footprints. Clara walked out with Orbit trailing until she returned him gently inside. She blocked Nathan, deleted message threads, but screenshots lingered in a folder marked evidence just in case. Rachel deserved truth, Clara reasoned, yet delayed sending it. 3 weeks later, Rachel found Clara through tagged conference photos and requested a meeting. They compared timelines, receipts, heartbreaks. Betrayal braided their stories. Together they drafted a joint letter, a chronology so detailed Nathan could neither deny nor deflect. When delivered, he replied once, "I never wanted anyone to get hurt." Silence followed. Fall turned to winter. Clara joined a support group for deception survivors. She learned that recovery is less about forgetting and more about trusting perceptions again. Rachel moved out, filed small e-claims for her share of renovations, and adopted Orbit. Nathan's 2 lives fused into none. Last anyone heard, he transferred to a new firm in Denver, the pattern likely packed with him. Double-bow life split the soul like light through a prism. Eventually colours diverge so far they cannot recombine. Architecture built on secrecy collapses under its own blueprints. Not every betrayal is premeditated. Sometimes it erupts in response to betrayal itself, an I with one attempt to balance hurt with hurt. The next story explores revenge cheating, where loyalty shatters into retaliation and the cycle of pain spins on. Sophia found proof on a Tuesday, the kind of ordinary day that ends ordinary things. A hotel receipt crumpled in the pocket of Nate's running shorts, dated the same weekend he claimed to visit his brother. The room had 2 guests listed. She stared until the numbers blurred, then placed the evidence on their oak table like a cracked dish waiting to be mended. When Nate walked in, sweater slick from the gym, she asked one question. Who was she? He stammered through denials, then half-truths. Business contact. A mistake. Meaningless. Words spilled. Trust drained. By midnight, Sophia had moved to the couch, heart thudding like a kicked door. She texted her best friend Mara. He cheated. Mara replied, "Do something wild before you forgive him." Forgive. The word tasted sour. At dawn, Sophia scrolled socials, numb thumb flicking through curated lives. An ad popped for Mix, an app that pairs users for no-strings adventures. Revenge flickered like a lighter in wind. She downloaded. Behavioural scientists describe reactive infidelity as a coping mechanism where betrayal begets betrayal driven by anger, wounded self-esteem, and a desire to restore power. It rarely heals wounds, it merely mirrors them. Within hours, Sophia matched with Ezra, a tattooed bartender who wrote, "Here for good cocktails and bad decisions." She replied, "Perfect." They met that night in a neon lounge Nate despised. Sophia wore the red dress Nate once called too bold. Bold felt medicinal. Ezra listened, laughed, touched her wrist when pouring bitters into her glass. The bar smelled of citrus and possibility. When he invited her to his loft 5 blocks, walking distance, she hesitated only long enough to feel guilt knock then locked the sensation outside. The loft was cluttered, warm, anonymous. Kissing Ezra felt like striking a match beside soaked letters. For a moment, the heat overrode hurt. After, she stared at the ceiling fan spinning shadows, realizing she could not remember Ezra's last name. Back home at 2 a.m., Nate asleep in their bed, Sophia showered until water ran cold. She did not confess. Silence felt like borrowed armor. Over the next week, Nate begged for counseling, cooked her favorite meals, left apology notes. Sophia nodded, accepted gestures, but inside she tallied evening texts with Ezra memes, flirtations, plans. What began as vengeance morphed into addiction. Each ping reassured her attractiveness, autonomy, power. Therapy started. Nate admitted emotional negligence, long work trips, complacency. Sophia spoke of loneliness, anger, but omitted Ezra. Therapists warn that concealed counter-betrayals stall healing. Rebuilding on half-truths is like patching a tire with gum. Sophia rationalized. Nate broke first. She deserved parity. Weeks passed. Intimacy with Nate returned, tender yet cautious. Meanwhile, Ezra became bolder, sending photos, invitations. The double life strained Sophia's nerves. Guilt seeped into work presentations, sleep, even laughter. Turning point. Company retreat in the mountains. Nate surprised her by attending Spouse's Day. During a bonfire he stood, voice trembling, and told co-workers, "I almost lost the love of my life because I forgot love is action." Applause echoed. Sophia felt tears, pretty and a spike of dread. Unread messages from Ezra buzzing in her pocket. That night, under cabin rafters, she confessed everything. Words tumbled, messy, raw. Nate listened, face pale but calm. "Why?" he whispered. She admitted revenge, then confusion when revenge felt good, then hollow. Research on hurt people cycles shows that retaliation offers short-term empowerment, but extends trauma for both. Recognition is step 1, accountability step 2. Sophia offered full phone access, cut ties with Ezra on speaker. Nate's shoulders sagged hearing the goodbye. Rebuilding version 2 was harder. Double breach equals double vigilance. They instituted radical transparency location sharing, scheduled check-on-ins, couples therapy plus individual sessions. Friends judged, some predicted collapse. Yet shared remorse forged grim solidarity. Months later they revisited the Neon Lounge. Not to repeat sin, but to reclaim space. They ordered mocktails, toasted to flawed resilience. The bar's mirror reflected 2 people older in grief, perhaps wiser. They left early, fingers interlaced without performance. Revenge cheating did not level the field, it cratered it. But standing in that crater together, Sophia and Nate chose to build, not bury. Psychologists call this post-betrayal growth pain, composted into empathy, boundaries, and mutual vigilance. Some couples try to prevent betrayal by drafting rules of freedom agreements to explore openly. But when boundaries blur and expectations clash, even consent can become camouflage for exploitation. Chapter 5 follows a pair who tried open love and discovered one partner viewed rules as loopholes. Jamie and Priya began their experiment with colour-coded spreadsheets. Column green, activities always allowed. Column yellow, case by case with discussion. Column red, hard lines, no sleepovers, with the same person twice in a week, no friends from their inner circle. They watched YouTube gurus on ethical non-monogamy, joined forums, ordered matching copies of The Ethical Slut. The shift felt progressive, almost academic. They'd been together 6 years, love intact but passionate spark flickering behind job stress and mortgage math. An open arrangement seemed like modern maintenance. Keep the partnership sturdy while exploring novelty guilt-free. Month 1 was breezy. Priya matched with a poet who loved midnight diners. Jamie met an Ariella Silks instructor named Tess. Date night debriefs were thrilling, each confession spiced by jealousy that doubled as foreplay. They congratulated themselves on maturity. Trouble seeped from cracks they hadn't predicted. Priya's poet, Cal, respected the calendar but sent long late-night voice clips about existential dread. Priya responded with equal vulnerability. Emotional intimacy wasn't listed in any column. Jamie felt a pang hearing Cal recite original verses for Priya over speakerphone. Jamie's own dates were fun but surface level. Tess travelled weekends for circus gigs. Messages came in bursts. Jamie found himself scrolling Priya's chat previews, comparing frequency. They scheduled a relationship check-in. Jamie admitted feeling second screen. Priya promised to limit after ribbon night messaging. 2 weeks later, Jamie discovered a hotel receipt on the joint credit card. 2 nights during a week, Priya claimed she had back-to-back rehearsals. Rule 3 no overnight trips without prior consent was red column territory. Priya confessed immediately when confronted. Cal had invited her to a poetry festival. She feared Jamie's hurt, so she omitted, believing what he doesn't know. Open relationships hinge on trust geometry. Transparency is the only wall strong enough to hold expanded intimacy. Violate it once, and the structure wobbles. Jamie asked for a pause. They agreed. 2 weeks of monogamy to recalibrate. Priya complied outwardly, but still listened to Cal's voicemails on her commute. Dopamine tether proves tough to sever. Secrecy re-emerged, now harsher because it broke both primary trust and the open contract. During the pause, Jamie met Becca at a friend's art show. Chemistry flared. He explained the hiatus, but Becca said she wasn't a rule follower. They kissed in a stairwell. Jamie's conscience sparked, then fizzled under adrenaline. He messaged Priya a vague update. Met someone intriguing, nothing happened. Omission mirrored Priya's earlier lie. Parallel deceit-bred paranoia. Priya checked Jamie's location share. Jamie scrolled Cal's Instagram stories. Confrontations spiraled. Accusations of hypocrisy. Competition disguised as honesty. They rewrote columns, each iteration granting slightly more freedom to justify past slips. Psychologists term this boundary drift, when agreements gradually erode to accommodate behaviour instead of guide it. The tipping point came at a polyamory meetup they attended, seeking advice. A veteran polycule leader posed a blunt question. Are you opening to grow love or outsourcing problems? Silence answered. On the drive home, rain blurred streetlights. Truth surfaced raw. They admitted chasing validation, masking insecurity, fearing stagnation. They booked couples therapy with a specialist in consensual non-monogamy. Sessions dissected motives. Jamie's fear of aging into invisibility, Priya's hunger for depth unburdened by shared history. They paused dating apps, built rituals of disclosure, added feelings first, check-wins before logistics. Months of work turned chaos into cautious harmony. Priya still met Cal, but invited Jamie to brunch first, letting jealousy breathe in sunlight. Jamie reconnected with Becca, this time within agreed bounds. Intimacy grew alongside accountability. Open on paper, became open in practice messy. Monitored, but honest. They learned freedom without responsibility is escapism. Responsibility without freedom is stagnation. Balance lives in continual negotiation. Betrayal can feel like the end of the map, yet every fracture also uncovers hidden terrain. Some choose to rebuild on steadier soil, others walk away, and many are still tracing the fault lines under their feet. Whatever path you take, remember this. Trust is fragile, but so is fear. Both can be mended when held to the light. Tonight, these stories close, but the questions remain: where do your loyalties live, and what will you do to keep them honest?